Don't use the one in the middle. Okay, sorry, I just had to get some clarity on the buttons to make sure that we're good. Don't aim it at you. Okay, hey, there we are. Okay, so thanks very much. My name is Jason Nations. See if we can advance this a little. Those are our trucks. Good times. Am I pointing this somewhere? All right, we're about to be shadow puppets. Oh, okay, to the right. Got it. Okay. I think you did, but right and left, it was the time zone. I don't know. So I work for a regulated utility, an investor-owned regulated utility in Oklahoma. Our service territory is here on the map. I think I've got a little, yeah, there you go. It's here on the map. My discussion today is going to be about our need to develop some kind of near real-time monitoring in our control system environments. As a utility, our control system environments are in our power generation, our power transmission, and power distribution systems. That's really where we're trying to get to. And so I just kind of want to give you a couple things. Our service territory is pretty large. It's about 30,000 square miles. And so it's not as if it's just right down the street. You know, we're not the Dow Chemicals with 200 plants, but we've got some geographic challenges with just being far away, which makes visibility some difficulties. Our generation types, we're kind of all over the board. We've got everything with gas, coal, wind, solar, all that kind of stuff. So just wanted to give you that as background. Those are the kinds of systems that now it's imperative that we be able to monitor in some way. Let's see here if I can figure this button out. Okay, so I want to talk about the why, because that's an important thing. And I'm sorry, I'm perhaps a little more glib than other speakers have been, so I don't know if I've hit the mark or if I'm off. It's 4 o'clock, so I think me being entertaining is probably helpful, but I don't know. The truth of it is, though, is that in the utility industry, right, so I'm going to break the deal already and say Stuxnet, because that's the first one that we all know about is anybody associated with anything in industrial control system environments, that's the first thing that kind of scares you a little bit. We can talk about others, but that's a big one. And then for us as an electric utility, all the activity going on in Ukraine affecting distribution management system and causing chaos, and then getting all the media attention around that really, really kind of helped us to realize we needed some focus on that, right? We're all aware that ICS environments are evolving and definitely threats are as well. And there's this blending, as we've discussed quite a bit with the previous panel and others, that got this blending between IT and OT. And I would posit, and I think you would agree, that visibility of process communications is a game changer for us. It's if you can understand the data and you can make sure that your communications are proper and functioning and your processes are working as designed, then you're in pretty good shape. One of the things I would say in our project goals is and I mentioned this yesterday on a panel, it's kind of a guiding force for us, is that sort of Rumsfeldian, we don't know what we don't know. We think we know what we know. You know, I could read his, right? But it's the known knowns and known unknowns. That's the challenge for us, right? So as far as goals for us, we were looking to implement some type of continuous monitoring and control system networks. And if we step back, I mean, a year ago, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, the thought of having continuous monitoring by security type nerds that are affiliated in any way with IT of major industrial processes, that's kind of a big ask that I don't know that there was a lot of traction for. I don't even know as a security group or as the leader of security at an electric utility whether I even thought that was something feasible because of our desire to maintain an air gap, because of the sensitivity of the data. Just we don't want to add any connective tissues that make the job of the bad guy any easier. But we realize that either we don't know and we have no ability to respond in a real-time way, or we connect them. And so that's kind of where we were on a decision point, and we made the decision that we thought it's worthwhile to understand our environments in the, again, Rumsfeldian way, and then make sure that we could respond in a real-time way. Because again, if you don't know what's happening in your environment, then you can't protect it. So another part of that is, in addition to visibility, I want to, I guess, speak to what visibility means. It's a specific inventory of what those systems are. We talked yesterday, and I think it's been said, and I agree with it, that that understanding your environment and knowing your inventory is incredibly valuable, because if you don't know what you have, then it's going to be, again, a challenge for you to protect that. And so getting a real-time inventory and then having some pretty mature detective capabilities on control system assets. In my experience, the security controls that are often layered in are things that are, I don't even know if they meet the bar of table stakes anymore. We throw antivirus onto a control system and we say we're good, and we all just sort of wink and nod and bump each other in the elbow that the first thing that we do after we install that is we exclude the program directories where all the control system stuff works, so that, you know, we don't mess up operations, right? So, hey, we've got something we can check a box on. You know, we've got a detective control of something, but I'm not sure the efficacy there, right? And we can talk about role-based access controls and other things, but those are not always detective. And so we wanted to also improve our incident response capabilities. It gets back to understanding the environment, having the detective controls in place to tell us what not normal looks like, and then being able to operationalize our response to it. And that's really what we're trying to get to. So that's our project goals on this that we ended up doing. And so what I want to talk about for a second, though, is the vendor response. So I've thrown in some different vendors, and I've tried to camouflage the ones that I have. I don't want to shame or embarrass anybody, but the first thing, again, in my experience, perhaps yours is different, but I bet it's not. My experience is that when you go to a control system vendor and you mouth the word security, they start to tense up. And then if you talk about that you're going to install something that gives you a security capability, they really tense up. And then you get that, hey, just remember, if you install that software, it's going to invalidate your warranty, which then makes your plant and operational folks really tense up, right? Because that's going to potentially have an impact on operations. And so that's a hard conversation. And in this journey that my company has been on around developing a culture of security and developing capabilities around and a program around having security, getting our vendors involved has been one of our biggest challenges. I found that I was able to convince my personnel significantly easier than I could some of the control system vendors. And again, I think at conferences like this, we see examples where the high-level leadership of our vendors is absolutely for a high-level engagement. They all are towing the line, yes, we're for security. None of them are saying they're not. But I don't know that trickles down to the field personnel or the regional manager types or the regional sales guys or the people that actually work in the field. So that's not a shot or a rock that I'm throwing at anybody. I just want to say that I think that's a disconnect that we've got a problem on. On a panel that I was on yesterday, my new friend Dan from Dow mentioned that he felt like there needed to be some sort of elevation of vendors' games, and I would definitely second that. And I think that that's a conversation that we need to have. And one of the things that we had as part of that kind of discussion is that as the asset owner, it should be up to me at some level what I put into my environments. I don't like being pigeonholed into, well, so you're using vendor X's, I'm just going to pick one. I'm not throwing rocks at GE. So you've got GE, and GE says you only get this. And again, I don't want to, I'm not trying to throw hot takes. Let me be clear. That's an example. GE hasn't done that to me, that I would admit. And so it's difficult because as a customer, I think I need that freedom and flexibility to choose what I've got, because I've got different use cases and I've got different requirements and obligations and other things than they might perhaps as my vendor, right? Clearly, we've got the operational constraints in there for that, but they don't have I'm a regulated utility. They don't have my compliance requirements. They will say that they do, but they've never lived it and breathed it at my level, so I don't know that they really understand that, right? So that's a challenge that I think that probably a lot of us are going to face. So what I would tell you is that if, as you're going through this and you're trying to get a high level of industrial control system monitoring, you need to be working with the vendors that you're talking about on your use cases to make sure they're going back and engaging the control system vendors on their own, because it will smooth that path for you significantly if your vendor can say, yes, we've spoken to alphabetical ABB, and they're totally fine with our solution. Here's a white paper. here's some other things. Then your plant personnel and your field personnel who otherwise might get a little twitchy about that warranty will be, their fears will be allayed, and I think it'll be easier for you. But this is a challenge. And this is one of those sort of barriers to entry. And I, again, would posit that I don't believe that it's just on the vendor to tell us how to secure our environment, because as much as they know about our environment, they still don't know it the way that I know it. And so we've got to work together. But that partnership has to be two-way streets. It can't be me telling them what they must do or them telling me what I must do. It's got to be a partnership where it's mutually beneficial. One of the things, too, for selection criteria, and so I've seen this and I've heard this, that yesterday I talked about a Swiss Army knife, right? Like, so if you only need 4 features of a Swiss Army knife, don't buy that giant brick one that's got like 20 things. Another thing, too, is when we think about this, there are so many guides on the internet alone for buying a car, but there are literally no guides that are this in-depth about features that you really want for the type of work that we're trying to do here with industrial control system monitoring. So you've got to be able to understand what you need and be able to speak to, sorry, I want to walk, but I want to make sure you can hear me. And so you've got to understand what you really need, right? The solution has to meet your use cases. You need to make sure, as a consideration for your vendor, that this is a long-term relationship. This cannot be some type of technology that we've scratched the I out and put an O on it and send it off. This cannot be somebody that sells you something and then scurries away. This has to be a long-term relationship. You know, they've got that term covenant marriage, where like you can't get out of it and someone has to die for the marriage to end. Like, that is almost the kind of relationship I was looking for in my selection criteria with a vendor. Because really I'm looking for, and I'll speak to it in a minute, I'm looking for a vendor to come alongside. Because the truth of it is, without me being mature in my processes, if I just deploy a sensor, but I can't make sense of any of the data or utilize it or operationalize it, then it is a blinking box, and I've checked another box along with just having in a malware on my DCS Windows boxes. You've got to also make sure, too, that there's a support commitment and capabilities. So this, again, that capabilities thing, I would tell you again, there's potential for snake oil in this type of market because it's emerging. There are a lot of different people out there. We've all been promised one thing and delivered another. And so it's imperative that those promises at least meet your use cases. So you should be looking for validation. You should be looking for reference calls. You should be looking for specific engineering guidance, that sort of thing. And then you need to be thinking about this. This can't be something that's on its own. You've got to integrate what you're doing into your security program. And so there was a question in a panel that I was on yesterday. This is a high-level maturity function. There are basic blocking and tackling. The previous panel talked a lot about using the CIS critical or the CSF or other things to help get your program. If you don't have those basic blocking and tackling functions, then it's going to be hard for you to then operationalize this type of data because you're not going to understand, and there are other basic things that you might be at risk at. So a couple of things. So I want you to think about pitfalls. And so, you know, we've all seen the video of the guy driving the jet ski across the ocean and there's like 10,000 sharks. And the guy on top of the water has no sense of what's underneath that could get him. And so I guess a couple that I would get you, and I sort of mentioned these, perhaps I stole my own thunder, but that's okay. You just don't want to be this guy, right? There's this giant shadowy figure. You don't know if that's a killer whale or a great white, I don't know. But you don't want to be that guy. So again, make sure that it's not just an enterprise tool that's been sort of tweaked to work for ICS. I would be very leery of those. Make sure that it's not just something telling you to patch. Like, that's what I'm going to reiterate again. If we just go back and look at it, so Trisis, patching wouldn't have fixed that. There's not patching that you can fix that, right? The Ukraine issue wasn't patch related. I mean, it was part of it. Perhaps it compounded the problem, but teaching people not to click on phishing emails and having multi-factor authentication and other controls, patching doesn't play a role in that. And so if you're thinking that your industrial control system security is going to be built on your patching capabilities, then I would tell you that my belief is that you might be spending your resources in a maybe not the most optimal, let's say suboptimal way. Those are valuable things, but your operational requirements of my power plant is to generate power. And I generally we're not installing patches while units are online, so that's going to make that hard for us to do that. So we have a systematic way, but that is an element of our security program rather than the crux of our security program. Patching is not going to be the thing that solves all of our problems. Okay, it's good hygiene, but again, it's not the thing that helps, right? Selling us software and nothing else. Again, I said this yesterday. My honest belief is that because of the level of detail and the level of information and the fact that forensic skills and incident response are perishable, you've got to use them frequently. And I don't have a staff big enough where I'm going to have, I'm not going to send guys off to the SANS forensics class, and then I don't have enough, I had to knock on wood first, sorry. I don't have enough incidents where I feel like I'm comfortably keeping my guys at the battle readiness for forensics or incident response at the highest level so that I have certainty that everything I'm doing is good. And so the truth is I want to have some type of relationship, again, with my vendor that our services, that they do it every day. And so there's value to that. And they've got some capabilities and they're more honed. Navy SEALs do workups for 6 months before they go to battle. They prepare for everything. You can't stay at a total state of readiness, though. It's not possible. And so what we try to do is find people that do have those level of skills, and we're going to let them do that work, and we're going to understand our environment and know where the bodies are and the perhaps the brown spots in our green grass. And so it's got to be more than just software. It's a relationship. It's they're going to help you to make sense of what you've got. And again, right, if your goal is to check a box, then maybe don't listen to me. But if your goal is to really understand your environment, make sense of it, and operationalize it, and be able to reduce dwell time and be able to respond, then you need a relationship. And then, as I said, if you can't operationalize the tool, what are you getting? I would say, again, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. You're going to have to work hard to get this kind of stuff deployed. And if all you get out of it is the satisfaction of job well done of having deployed some sensors, I don't know if that's the way to go. So those are just some pitfalls that I saw, we saw as a team, and I think are valuable for you. One of the things that we try to do as part of this too is fully utilizing our best assets. So one of the things I'm probably most proud of is our security awareness program that we've got. We think we've done a pretty good job of connecting the why. We made a mark here. I have to say mark and not logo because my brand manager will get mad at me. This is our secure mark. And so now this is synonymous with partnership at my company. This is synonymous with partnership, with getting stuff done, with executing, and with helping we call our employees members, with helping our members. And it's become sort of the ethos that our group is functioning by. Right? So we're looking at this problem we're trying to solve as a people problem as much as a technical one. And if I would posit, I feel like I'm just throwing hot takes, but I think I'm very passionate about this. If you can't get the people lined up and engaged and enrolled with you, then you'll never get the technology solution. You've got to get the people. Connect the why. Understand that your field personnel in industrial control system environments are engineers, and they are very, very smart. But security is not their primary area of focus, right? They may like it, they may enjoy it, they may be intrigued by it, but that's not right? In my environment, they're the guys that are making power. So they may love boilers and steam turbines, but security is just kind of this other thing. So we had to connect the why, and relationships matter. This is something that if I do anything as a dad, I hope I'm telling my kids this. That if you can have relationships, we've run into, so as our deployment went on, we had some struggles with a few things, and the strength of our relationship got us through because we knew that there was trust built. And I think someone in another panel talked about that shared trust. That's incredibly valuable because when hey, we have this glitch, what's happening? Or is this gonna bring my plant down? People would trust. I would say, no, it's not going to bring it down. Here's what we're gonna do. And they just keep moving. And again, without enrollment, you're hosed. That's the truth of it. And if your plants are anything like our plants, if the plant manager decides he doesn't want this, it doesn't matter what you try to do, it's not happening. You'll either not get physical access, or they'll do worse to you and they'll tell you, oh yeah, man, we're doing it. And then you never hear anything else. And so you don't want to get ghosted like that. And that's our best asset, right? We talk a lot about how people can also, maybe they're our best asset, but they're also our biggest risk. So we're trying to leverage the people who understand the environment to get total visibility and understanding. So our deployment, it's something that I would tell you that you need to make sure you're ready for is the detailed level of information you're going to need to understand. I'm talking, you need to look at engineering line diagrams. You need to know every network that you've got devices in so that you can make sure that your sensors that you do deploy give you the totality of your environment. It will do you no good in your critical, whatever your critical thing is, if you get 85% of it and there is some other super critical part of that critical plant, function, system, process, whatever it is, that you've left out. So you need to make sure that you understand the implications of that and that you've got what you've got. I would tell you order of operations matters. You need a quick win. So take a risk-based approach, but start with some things that you know you can accomplish and that people, you can kind of trade off that story. That's what we did. And then we made sure that we were highly coordinated. Again, I've heard of stories of people trying to deploy stuff in field environments, and I'm not of that. So I worked as part of an IT department. My security group is separate from our IT department. We still battle some sort of we ride with those guys kind of mentality. But we made sure that our field personnel were ready to go. And part of that goes back to that secure together image that I showed you, is that we're trying to connect the why and make sure people are there. And we because we made sure we had detailed planning, because we had a good order of operations and we coordinated well, we finished our deployment within 3 months. That's pretty big for us. As a utility, we don't do much fast except give you electricity as soon as you hit that light bulb or the light switch. But other things take time and lumber, but we recognize the need for it. We communicated to our senior management all the way down to our instrumentation and control technicians. We got to move this fast because we want to make sure we're aware. We don't want to be victimized and not know it. And so one of the things, too, that we did, so the vendor that we chose, they have green in their logo. And so we use green Cat5 cable everywhere. So the plant guys knew, and we know, no, that's our cable run. So if it's connected to a device it shouldn't be, we would know. If the guys in the plant are like, what is this device? They can go, oh, green cable, it's the security guys. So that's just something that, again, we're trying to, I guess we humanize that a little, just trying to help people understand that we're trying to think through all the little details. Because I think truly if people trust you with the little, then they can trust you with the big. Some of our next steps. So I'm not going to shill for a vendor, but you can see who I've chosen. We feel really good. And these guys, I don't want to say check the box because that has a bad connotation, but they hit every use case that we've got, especially the long-term relationship aspect. We're continuing to do vendor training with those guys to sharpen. I don't know where my pointer isn't working. Okay. We're continuing to do vendor training, sharpening the skills of our people with their skills and how to use their tool and capability. We're refining our inventory. We are trying to stand up, right? Our end goal of this whole thing is having a really mature threat hunting process that is both for ICS environments and for our corporate environment. And this is a tool that we are definitely using in the ICS world. We're trying to refine our alerting. We're trying to make sure that we've got run books that are in place to help, right? Again, it's hard to train people on multiple tools. And so if we've got documented processes for our sort of easy, low-hanging fruit that we can give a more junior analyst, then the harder stuff is a little easier. So all of these kinds of things are operational. And so if you have a vendor, again, that just sells you something and runs off and doesn't provide you with training, continuous growth of their tool, that's a big thing. Trying to make sure your approach is right as for you and from the vendor, and then refining how you're operationalizing that. I think your outcome, if you can't get to an operational state, is that you have this thing and you will have to kind of hang your reputation out with your senior leadership to go get this thing, and then you're not really using it. So I don't know if I could sleep with myself having committed that kind of money and that kind of my reputation with my management. So we're going to get everything we can out of this environment. So it's a great challenge. I think that the market is there. I think there are some great companies doing great work. Before you get to that point, just like you would, I'm going to go back to my car illustration again. You need to know, do I want the family truckster or am I looking for a Cadillac Escalade? Whatever it is, that's up to you, and you decide that, not a vendor. So you can use them to help you shape and narrow and refine your use cases, but I would tell you that you've got to figure out, is it inventory is what my goal is? Is it inventory and monitoring? Is it response? Is it lowering dwell time? Those kinds of things. You've got to figure those out. And you need to look for a vendor, and I'm going to say this again. I think the vendors in that space, because it's emerging, the vendors in that space who can put together the good technology that says, here's how packets in a TCP/IP network in an industrial control system communicate, and here's normal, and here's not normal, and here's some things you ought to look at. Lots of people are going to be able to do that. That will become commoditized. But being able to make specific sense of tradecraft-related activities that nation-state actors are using is outside the realm of capability of little old Oklahoma Gas and Electric in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. That's outside of what we're trying to get done. But if I have a vendor that can do that for me, then now I've got the capability, but I don't have to have FTEs on that. I don't have to train on it. I don't have to make sure that our mission gets wonky. We've got that. So you're looking for a relationship. That's really the truth of it. And I think that there are great possibilities. I'm sorry, I think I might be over time. I talk a lot. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Sure. So a lot of the tools, again, are mapping. And so we just lost it. Hey, can we go back for 1 second, fellas? Can you go back to that last slide just for 1 second? Otherwise, I'm going to do shadow puppets. All right, so I'm kidding. Okay, so the inventory, so a lot of the tools, having a visualization is really cool. Oh man, okay, good thing I did 13 slides instead of 30. Oh, you're doing it for me. Oh, go, okay, right there. So a lot of the tools have visualization capabilities. You see this in your IT stuff as well. There are other places, there are lots of network monitoring tools and that kind of thing. And sometimes those are great. With us for our inventory is just making sure that we understand how our network is segmented, and we're looking for, again, I think it's sort of this long-term baselining process. I'm a utility. I'm pretty small. I have 872,000 customers-ish, somewhere around there. Now that's like family units or commercial and industrial stuff, so it's not that number of people, but we have smart meters out there. We have distribution automation devices, so capacitor banks and reclosers on distribution circuits. There are a lot of little specific devices. So knowing where those are, seeing where they're communicating, where they should be communicating, where they aren't, those are the kinds of inventory things that we're constantly staying up on, right? Our DCS for a power plant is pretty static unless there's an overhaul. But on other parts of our business, we're adding new devices all the time to help to increase our capabilities around service for our customers. That's the area where the refined inventory is. But also, too, as we learn more about as our vendors mature and they learn more about how devices communicate and fingerprinting and that sort of stuff, we're using those things. The inventory is really key for us because in an incident response scenario, we want to make sure that what we think we know in that, again, Rumsfeldian way about an asset is legit, so that when we pivot or make assumptions, or if we were going to even threat hunt, we're starting with a good base set of knowledge. And that's just a constantly evolving process. And so we end up with these kind of spider webs and maps or charts, that sort of thing. That's really the crux of the inventory. Making sure that we know our environment is our real goal. I don't want to be irresponsible for other people's time. I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards. Oh. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, okay. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.